Here we are on our charts. We're starting with the fatal flaws or the causes charts for Act 3. And we have quite a bit to add, but we'll try and do it fairly quickly. So starting with disobedience. Obviously, we had some disobedience in Act 3, especially in Scene 5, where Juliet refuses to marry Paris. Now, we know that there's good reason for that disobedience, but it is still an act of disobedience, and it certainly is perceived that way from her parents. So when she refuses to marry Paris, that would be an act of disobedience. For impatience, I think that the fact that Capulet agrees to Paris's request and schedules a wedding for Thursday. They were only talking about the marriage proposal on Sunday, and now they're scheduling a wedding for Thursday. Now, to be fair, Romeo and Juliet did kind of the same thing, even faster. But Capulet is no exception here either when it comes to impatience. He's like, let's get it done. He's like, is that too early? No, it's not too early. Okay. So that was Act 3, Scene 4. For chance or fate, I think there's just a really important quote there that Romeo is realizing that fate is against him when he says, "Oh, I am fortune's fool," meaning I am being screwed with here, that like things are not going the way that they should be going, or maybe that they are going the way they should be going because fate is completely against him. And that was after he had killed Tybalt. Okay, for anger, a few instances. Let's start with Romeo's anger at Mercutio's death. We know that he's angry, and he basically says that he has become effeminate because of Juliet, and now that he sees Mercutio dead and murdered, he becomes angry, which causes him to act. And we all know that that was a big turning point or the climax of this particular play. So that was Act 3, Scene 1. But he's not the only one that demonstrates anger. The prince also is very angry, and kind of understandably so. He's angry because they disobeyed him and reignited the fight. And he's also angry at the death of Mercutio. But the reason why this is important is because it ultimately leads to Romeo's banishment. Right? Now, again, technically it could be worse, right? It could be an execution, but still the prince's anger contributes to Romeo's banishment, and that's in the same scene, Scene 1 of Act 3. And then there is some anger, obviously, in Capulet's voice as Juliet says, I don't want to get married to Paris, and he gets very, very angry, so much so that he even threatens to throw Juliet out, to disown her, to let her die or starve on the streets or whatever. So those are some pretty serious consequences of Capulet's anger getting the best of him really quickly. For pride, we have Mercutio's pride when Romeo won't fight. Remember, Tybalt calls Romeo a villain, which any honorable man would have every right to then challenge Tybalt to a duel for calling him a villain. Romeo doesn't. Remember, he says, "Oh, but you don't understand. I love you." And Mercutio was like, "Oh, this is dishonorable," right? And so it was really Mercutio's pride that led to his own fall. Right? Now, to be fair, it was his pride for his friend, but still, he couldn't stand to see his friend, notice that it's all relating back to himself, his friend be dishonored in that way, and that was Act 3, Scene 1. Additionally, it was Capulet's pride that won't let him refuse Paris. Remember, he says, kind of towards the end of Act 3, he basically says, "I'll not be forsworn." And so we realize that one of the reasons he's so angry with Juliet pushing back against what he has decided is best for her is not just because, it hurts him that they're on opposite sides. He is upset because if she says no, or if she does not marry Paris, then that makes Capulet look like a liar. It also makes him look like he is not in control of his household, which is really a matter of pride for him. Okay, so he will not go back on his word with Paris as a point of pride or as a matter of pride. With secrecy, of course, we have the friar hiding Romeo. I don't know if that has major consequences at this point, but he does hide Romeo. So notice too, the secret marriage and the hiding of Romeo both have to do with the friar. So the friar is kind of the secret keeper in this particular play. So just kind of some interesting things there. Okay, let's go ahead and jump over to the irony and foreshadowing chart. Start with irony. There are plenty of examples. I gave you, remember, Mercutio says that look for me tomorrow and I will be a grave man. And the irony of that is that it's out of his character. It's unexpected, right? Because Mercutio is always joking and always being silly and goofing around. And then to describe himself as a grave man, someone who would be serious, is a little bit ironic, okay? Unexpected. Then we have the fact that Romeo is upstairs with Juliet, and I mean with Juliet, while Capulet arranges her marriage to Paris, and that's both scenes 4 and 5. That is, again, like I said in my videos, that is a form of dramatic irony because we know what's going on in both places while the characters do not. But I think it's also situational irony because Romeo's upstairs literally with Juliet in a you know what I'm talking about. And at the same time, Capulet is arranging a marriage to Paris where Romeo and Juliet are enjoying their own wedding night. And so just a little bit unexpected that on the same night that she's enjoying her wedding night, her wedding is being planned for the future. So just kind of interesting there. And then Lady Capulet, the fact that she wants to poison Romeo, or she plans to poison Romeo. Now, this isn't dramatic irony because technically we don't know this as an audience yet. I gave you a spoiler here. But he ends up poisoning himself. And so there is irony in that that it does happen, but not in the way expected. Okay, and that's Act 3, Scene 5. For foreshadowing, we kind of went over this one in the video together. But when Juliet says, "I see thee as one dead in the bottom of a tomb," that was when she was up on the balcony looking down as Romeo was leaving for Mantua. And so, yeah, she will see him dead in the bottom of a tomb. So there you go. That's it for Act 3. Thanks.